got my partner Brian Rogers here, Brian the Predator Rogers, former Bellator fighter. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is the transition. You know, we were talking about this earlier, like the transition for athletes. You know, what happens after, after you're done with you actually had a dual transformation. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I was a kid growing up in Northeast Ohio. I was a football, wrestling, track kid and watched martial arts and did karate and always had the goal of being a professional athlete. Like there was no alternative, I remember, I think in third grade we got asked to write a book, and I said I was going to be a veterinarian and then an NFL football player and a veterinarian in the off season. Then when I quit growing and those D1 offers started falling through, ended up at Walsh University, and still, I treated that like it was a D1 program, like we were going to the league, and just all in and focused, and all of a sudden it's done. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's something you've been doing your whole life, it's just done. So I really didn't handle it that well at first. A lot of my friends, were excited to go to, off to their jobs and make some money and this and that. And I was always thinking, like, I want to be the best. I want to travel the world and see some things. So that's what really led me into mixed martial arts in the beginning. I was an amateur from 06 to 08 and then made my pro debut on a very short-lived reality show called The Iron Ring, which is on BET. My first pro fight, I had Little John in my corner.
I used to watch that show.
Yeah, it was bad. It was good, but it was bad.
That was cool,
but crazy. It was NBA All-Star Weekend 2008, and that was my first big TV fight. Glitz, Glamour, BET, New Orleans, and all that, and I was kind of hooked. And man, that feels like just yesterday, really. And I was able to fight professionally for a little over 10 years or so. And then what kind of happened to me was interesting. I left Bellator in 2016. We talked to the UFC, and they said, win 3 in a row, we'll sign you. And I was like, okay, here we go. Like, I want to win in the UFC. Let's get there,
Right.
So I had a fight in Mansfield, Ohio in January of 2017, and then March of 2017, I fought in Denver. And I won both fights, but in the second fight of March of 2017, I tore my labrum and my rotator cuff. And so now I was like, okay, I'm going to rehab this. They wanted me to get surgery, and I was like, if I get surgery, that's 9 months, plus the therapy, this, that, and the other. Let me see if I can just rehab it. And I'll kind of talk about them both. But that's what really kind of transitioned me into marketing and business, because I was on the shelf and I couldn't really train or fight.
What am I going to do in this in-between time?
Yeah. Both times it was kind of that. It was, super passionate about football. That was done. I wanted to get into something that I could be engaged in and competitive in, and that's why I transitioned to MMA. And then, when MMA was on hold, like, what's the most – I figured out that I like risky things, you know what I mean? I like chasing after things, and just my energy went out. I was like, okay, what's the hardest thing I can do next? Entrepreneurship and trying to build my own business.
Got that right. It's plenty of risk, and it's definitely hard. I know there's a lot of things out in the social media space that shows you these easy parts in the end game of where people are, not knowing, man, entrepreneurship is tough. It's long days. It's a lot of work to it. So you definitely picked one thing that was tough and rolled into another thing that was tough. I can identify with the whole trying to find a new space after you end up playing, a sport or whatever. Because when I got done playing college basketball, I didn't think that it was over either. I still was like, hey, I might go overseas and play. I was still kind of, just playing and working out, not really with a plan to do anything else. And then I kind of just, life happened, you know what I mean? So life happened, and, once you start having a family, then you got to start making some adult decisions. So that's kind of how my transition happened. But I don't ever think that I was done, per se, until, I decided, like, look, I got to start bringing some consistent income in here,
That was me. I've throughout my athletic career, I was a mid-level guy. As Bellator, I consider myself, on the B team list in the big scheme of things, MMA. Was fortunate to fight on TV, 14, 15 times, but, I wasn't making $100,000 a paycheck. I was a mid-level guy, so I would work. I worked as an associate special education teacher. Did that full time for 2 years and just would train after work, and then eventually took that down to part time and was kind of going back and forth. It's like I got to make some more money. Fights are here and there, and then flash forward a few years ago when I moved to Colorado in 2014. The first 9-10 months, I just was training and just fighting. I lost the fight, and I think what the fight was, full transparency. I was probably $12,000 a show, $12,000 a win. Ideally that's about where I was at. If you get 3-4 fights a year, you're doing all right. But when you lose the fight, they put you on the shelf.
Yeah.
So I lost that fight, and I was like, man, I got to get something going. And my daughter, I don't remember the month, but my daughter was coming. I was going to be on the way to having my first child. And I was like, I got to get something going. And that's what led me into software sales and digital marketing and going down that route, which was kind of the reason I went to Colorado at first, because I was like, I saw the culture, the companies, and I knew they were like, extreme sports are real big out there, and people taking off Fridays to go snowboard and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, all right, this is the way I get my toe in the water and still, be training and be
it's
fighting.
Definitely
and
a good place for, to tie the two together, because it kind of is a newer, I don't want to say a newer, but it's really good for tech space right now. If you think about it now, Denver, Colorado, that area is big for that now. And then with the extreme sports, it kind of ties in. Yeah. So how do you tie those two together in your, professional business?
Yeah. It's funny. I remember when I first went to when I was first working for this software company, I was telling someone the story the other day. They were like, Brian, you going camping with us this weekend? The whole sales team. And I was like, nah, I'm not going camping. Not doing that. But I went on the ski trip, didn't ski, but just kind of hung out the base of the mountain. And it happened to be funny enough. It was SEC tailgate day, and so there was a lot of football people out in their flags. And so Colorado's a bit of a transplant town. So for me, I found myself connecting with other Midwestern people that were just introducing me to more mountain Colorado kind of lifestyle stuff and whatnot. So now, man, it's been a challenge. I've gotten, as I've been in Colorado, I'm a little bit more mellow than I used to be. I'm doing yoga now, and a little bit of that. Yeah. I get in the mountains every once in a while, but it's definitely a balance of having to figure out, as we kind of talked about earlier, working out and keeping your health, mental well-being together when you don't have that sport particularly to guide you. There's no one telling me I got to be up at 6 a.m. at a practice.
It's definitely a task, especially when you're trying to, accomplish some things in your business world and all of that. But that's why I think sports and business kind of go together. I always try to equate those two together 100%. When I'm explaining things, because there's the same discipline you have to have. You got to have the discipline to be able to get up and do the things that need to be done when, hey, listen, nobody's going to tell you to go, create this email campaign or marketing campaign. You have to do it on your own. Just like if you want to achieve something in sports, you got to get to the gym. You got to work out. You got to do all those things. So they tie together, as very, very closely.
That's the only real reason I think I really got into business, is I figured out, I was like, I got this training already kind of within me. Yep. During my time with Bellator, the executives, they saw I was, an athlete with a little bit of education behind me and whatnot. And so I got to go to the MTV Music Awards, BET Awards, got to go to Sportel and the south of France, what I mean, Monaco, and got to go twice, all expensive paid, all over the place. And I was learning from these different business executives, whether in marketing, sales, and production. And to your point, I think everything is process, performance, outcome. For sure. Whenever I think about goal setting, it's something I kind of caught in school, is like, everybody wants to be a millionaire entrepreneur or world champion. Or the world champion athlete or whatever it is. And I always tell people from an MMA perspective, if I want to be world champ, okay, what are the holes in my game? What do I got to do? Right. Let's walk that back. All right, process, process. I got to get up. I got to get in the gym. I know I need to eat right so my weight's right. I know I got to go to strength and conditioning right. So if I do all these process things and I put that in my life, then my performance is going to be better. And then I'm doing all this process stuff right. Now I can just work on my performance, and as you have the improvement in performance, it's going to get you to that outcome goal. And I think it's the same thing. It's the same thing in business.
I always say, the format. Like once you get the format down, if you want to shoot, I've heard some people say this before, and I've said it. You want to shoot 80% from the free throw line, you got to shoot more free throws. You're not going to start out shooting 80%, but you got to shoot more free throws. Yeah. And then once you get that rhythm down, you're going to fail a whole lot. And then once you get that rhythm down, you become an 80% shooter, but you got to put that work in. And it's the same with business. You have to learn what works and what doesn't work. So you got to put all that same work in. And then once you start to get that format, then you just keep on implementing it, and that's how business works. That's how sports works. Yes. That's how you achieve things, because it's not necessarily the doing of the things. It's the failing and figuring out how to overcome them. And so the fact that you've switched, from football to MMA to marketing to tech and all these other things is this shows the versatility, and it shows how you've adapted, and you need that. You need that in any kind of entrepreneurial space because, as you know, nothing is the straight line. It's always, it's always here and there, and you just kind of figure it out. People say, if you're an entrepreneur, what your job is just to figure things out, and that's pretty much it. That's what it is.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think everything is definitely, like you said, process laden, and you have to have those micro failures to get the big wins.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think also, as you know, an athlete, you just don't, when you step on the court, you don't know what it's going to be that day. Your goals, intentions, but you got your own teammates to worry about in a way, and everything else. So you definitely got to be on the fly and ready.
Right.
For me, one of my weaknesses is like I think everybody's like that in business. So like last Friday, we put together a shoot, and I just like maybe a week in advance, and I had a buddy of mine's coffee shop. And actually, he's like home brewing out of his place, and he's got like an Airbnb style thing he's renting out. And I just hit up 20 people. I was like, "Be here at 9:30." And they're like, "What are we doing?" I'm like, "Just be here at 9:30. I'm gonna interview you.
Right.
You're gonna make some food. Da 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 da." I'm just throwing people in situations, and I thrive in that environment. I like kind of
because
the
it's on the fly.
stuff.
Let's figure it out. Yeah. A lot of people don't.
Yeah,
A lot of people don't.
I think I tell people all the time, marketing is problem solving.
Yeah.
Marketing is problem solving 100%, and it's. Whether it's how to get your product or build that audience or whatever, you have to figure out that challenge,
For sure, it is. I mean, that's why, like, for Lead from the Front, I would say our big thing is the reason why we identify with entrepreneurs and athletes is because you kind of have the same thing we talked about it. And it's just problem solving. Like, if you can get up, solve the issue of, hey, this is how I have to get my body in the right shape. And then when you leave that space, your mind is kind of in a different area, and it just helps with the business part of it, and it just ties in together. So it does, like the working out, the physical part of it kind of helps the problem to be solved when you start working in with your business. Yeah. At least that's how it is with me. And I think that's why athletes and entrepreneurs identify with Lead from the Front, because if they see, hey, I'm doing this, the fitness part of it, and then I'm also, spending that time in the business world with it, And they just tie in perfectly.
No, that's great. I've loved, obviously I've been watching from afar. I've been loving what you're doing, with the brand. As soon as I saw it, saw the logo, saw the brand, and read it, I was like, yeah, I get it. I get it.
And that's it. That's what you do, and you already, explained that before. Marketing is that. It's not me saying, hey, Lead from the Front. It's you seeing it.
Yes.
You seeing the the things that are going on. Absolutely. And I just know, like, that's why I was so excited to get with you, because I mean, all of those things shows that's what you're doing. You lead from the front. Period. Like, I didn't stop because I had to stop fighting. I didn't stop because I had to stop playing football. I'm moving on to the next thing. And it takes a special person to be able to do that. So I mean, because a lot of people, we have issues when one thing ends that we're good at. You know what I mean? And not that MMA has ended for you, but when those things end, a lot of people have a hard time with them. You 100%. See it in professional athletes all the time.
Yeah.
You definitely see it.
I think there's a lot to that, and I've even, myself and things I've been putting out there lately. Obviously the mental health space has been big, and there are a lot of ups and downs, as an athlete, and what I mean, as a budding entrepreneur, and I've had to, talk to my parents a lot, talk to professionals about that, because the transition is tough.
It is.
The transition is super tough, and you got to let go of that resentment sometimes, or people you're holding on stuff to, but push forward. The reason I kind of go all in so much is because, like, I got the same worries and insecurities as a lot of people on different levels, but there's no, like, something Gary Vee says, what's the alternative?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So it's time to just move forward and push on. That's what I've been trying to do. And that's why I love your brand and love what it stands for. Because I always thought about, back in especially sports, we know the loud guys who are always clapping and up front, but aren't necessally true leaders.
Right.
Or the rah-rah guys,
Because I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to talk about the mental health thing, because I appreciate you bringing that up, and I appreciate you posting about that. Those things help a lot. But before we get off of this, you talking about the loud guy and the clapping guy. In the space that we're in, where we're in entrepreneurship, there is a lot of motivators out here, and nothing's wrong with that. Everybody needs that motivation, but people do have to understand that there's a difference. Like from from being able to motivate people and then being able to help people implement things to change. Because after Gary Vee his videos are off, you know, after the videos are off, you still got to do the work.
Yeah.
You know, so, and not that he just motivates you, because he does give you other pieces, but
stuff.
you know, just the point that it can't just be motivation. Because, you know, when you're at home by yourself, you're not still thinking, hey, I'm going to prove my teacher wrong, my third grade teacher wrong. That's not going to push you forever. You know, it can't just be that motivation. It has to be why. There's a reason why you started what you're doing. And most people, it's just that they're passionate about it. And I'm glad that you, just to kind of switch back on the mental health part about it, you seem passionate about it because you have an understanding of it, you know. And that's needed, you know, that's definitely needed.
I thought about, you know, I've always been a person who has just felt a lot of responsibility to community, friends, and family as a person who's, you know, like think a pretty strong individual, and I've always kind of wanted to be an example for people and things like that. And so, I didn't have any anxiety or coming up, you know, junior high, high school, even college. I mean, you get ups and downs, but nothing I ever thought something's wrong with me or anything like that. Like, I didn't know what anxiety was until 34.
A lot of these things, a lot of these things that you hear about, you're like, man, I didn't even like depression or anything. Well, a lot of us walk around depressed, we don't even know it. You know what I mean? We don't even know it. You know, we're thinking like, I'm not depressed, or you know, but you kind of see it in somebody's behavior, and then until somebody brings it to light, you kind of don't even think about it. So that's why, again, I commend you for bringing that to light, you know, because a lot of, I don't know if y'all know this, I'm going to speak to y'all here. He was kind of modest about his Bellator career. I think you were nominated for Knockout of the Year before. He had his own ring T-shirt, walkout T-shirt. That's big stuff, you know what I mean? That's a pretty big accomplishment. Not a lot of people can say that they were in that space.
I was fortunate, you know what I mean? I wanted to take the most opportunities, and you know, me and my friends used to joke, you know, our mutual friend Derek Besgrove, how we got connected. You know, we used to, you know, Derek would always come to a lot of my stuff. And I was like, listen, I'm a low budget Northeast Ohio celebrity. But then it kind of grew and became a thing. Even, you know, it's funny. You don't realize sometimes the impact you have on people. And maybe 3 weeks ago, I was meeting with a teammate at a coffee shop. And I haven't fought in 2 years. And a guy stopped me. He's like, "Are you Brian Rogers?" Never. And I was like, "Yeah." I think I met him at a networking thing or something. He's like, "Man, I really enjoyed your fights. And I always enjoyed like what you talked about." And he referenced a fundraiser I did for a school years ago and things like that. And I was like,
cool.
"Yeah, it was. Cool. It was. You know, it makes you." Man, if you guys see an athlete out there, like, tell them you remember him playing. You know,
I'm telling
tell them
you,
to have some game.
You
It'll
always
make our
love
day.
to hear that. Even like in the barbershop or whatever, when people say, "Hey, look, I remember when you played. I like that." I mean, that does it. It makes me happy. I feel good about that.
Right. You do it for yourself, but you want people to appreciate it at the same time. You know, those who know, you know, one of the things, you know, type of deal.
Yeah, I mean, so and then you mentioned like just the area you come from and being an MMA fighter. There are some really good things happening from people out of that. What gym you fought? Strong Style?
Strong Style MMA, just south of Cleveland, Independence, Ohio. You know, to go down the list for MMA people, Dan Bobish, who's a Mount Union wrestler, he got into MMA. Dan was early UFCs, things like that. My buddy Jeff Cox, he's fought in the UFC a couple times. Jeff's a Cleveland police officer today. Jeff is, you know, that's my guy. Jeff used to wear these maroon tights. He was old school, maroon tights. He'd run slow, he'd jog. He's a non-athlete, made it to the UFC, and he's a Cleveland cop doing real work. You know, doing real work, and is a good person in general. Forrest Petts, the meat cleaver, you know, great left hook, great boxing. He was a guy who boxed his way through MMA at the high level. Like, he learned how to grapple and wrestle, but he just put hands on people.
There's still something to be said for people that, you know, for people with that skill set, for sure.
And then newer people on the newer age, you know, Chris Lozano was in Bellator. Two bigger names, Jessica Ai, who recently challenged for the women's flyweight title. She's out in Vegas training now, and then my buddy Stipe Miocic, who recently
congrats to
Stipe. It was his birthday Monday too, actually. He recently got his title back from Daniel Cormier, so that was big. And I don't think people. I was thinking about it, like, Stipe might be arguably like the biggest hometown hero
if you look at it, people were talking about it on Twitter after he won, and they were like, this is up there with, the Cavs winning, and
it's
Browns fan. It is. I mean, people are proud of that. You know what I mean? People are proud of that.
People were hitting me up like, "Yo, he did it for Cleveland. He did it for Ohio." Like people, feel that and want to gravitate.
It's always good to have that, that kind of hometown, personality that represents too as well. That's always good.
Definitely.
Yeah. Sports in general, man, are you can kind of get a different feel from them because people resonate with it. You don't have to be an athlete to love sports, and that's why I think sports is so huge. We were talking about the NBA earlier and just talking about how people get so excited about these games, and I'm definitely excited about the upcoming NBA season. It's gonna be a lot of parity.
Like I'm looking how I can go and travel. I'm trying to get to different places.
I was gonna hit you up too. I'm definitely trying to come out for a Denver LA Lakers game for sure. I like to go see the Lakers, and I don't want to just go to Cleveland and Detroit to watch the Lakers play. I want to try to go to different spots.
Yeah, I'd love to have you.
Yeah, because I know I'd imagine I think we're probably going to work on a couple of different things in the future. I definitely love the direction you're headed in. The vision you put out there is clear, and I think it's perfect for people in our space to kind of, to see it. So,
trying, I just to a point earlier about, things being accessible, I just kind of saw what was going out there a lot and just try to learn more and grow more and then use my skills and talents to kind of put the words and put the messages out there and just, create content and just go. Yeah. I'm a big believer in document over create, which is a Gary Vee thing. And I think to your point, as far as like, the motivation people, and so kind of circling back to that, the term hustle porn has become a thing. Or like people get all jazzed up and then don't really do anything.
Yeah, you gotta get out there and do it. I mean, I just did a video about this specific thing. Okay. You absolutely have to. You just got to get out there and do it. Yeah. I mean, I watch like Inky Johnson's one of my. I watch him a lot, man. The dude is amazing to watch speak. But after you hear those words, you got to be willing to go out and implement this stuff. You got to be willing to go out and put the work in and grind it out and do all of that. I hate even saying grind it out because it kind of, people get that, that stigma of here we go again with this motivational stuff. And I don't want it to be a negative thing. But I just want people to understand that it doesn't stop there. Yeah. You gotta go after it.
100%. It's a mindset. And it's funny. I've wanted to check out Icky Johnson, right? Yeah. I wanted to check him out because I follow Eric Thomas as well. Eric Thomas, hip hop preacher. And there's a gentleman. His Instagram's featuring Jose. Jose, you gotta get back to me on that DM, dog. But he's Eric Thomas's and Icky's personal brand guy. And so his production company and team, they do all of that. And I wanted to interview him and kind of chat with him about that. So I'm going to send you this clip, this reason. But to your point, like, I lost train of thought. To your point, you got to go. And it is a grind. There's no other way to really say it. It doesn't have to be painful.
It's a grind.
You got to go slow. I'm wearing my patient shirt for a reason. I'm not patient. Like, I'll tell you that right now. Like, I have this on. This is some of the things I post, guys, are reminders for myself sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. Absolutely. I agree. Because, I mean, athletes, we're both former athletes. Yeah. It's hard for athletes to have that patience because, one, if we're successful in sports, you kind of expect things to work. And when they don't, it's kind of hard to reel yourself in, but you have to. You got to reel yourself in and just kind of get to the space where, hey, let's just create these steps and make it work out.
Well, and it's almost like, basketball or football, hey, this play's not working. We're drawing the X's and O's, and we see it.
Improvise.
The chalkboard says this. It's, he's supposed to do this when I do that, and sometimes it's just not working. And that's hard to pivot and get off of as an athlete too a little bit. It's like I got to change this game plan up.
Definitely. But it's one of the skills that you learn, with sports. That sometimes you gotta go left when it's supposed to be right.
Halftime adjustments.
You gotta make the adjustments.
It's a marathon.
It is. Yeah. And I just wanted to also put it out there that when people feel like things are not going right, I think that's when we lose a good portion of the people that have something to offer. But they just got to understand, like, I put out Lead from the Front to show people that, to show that everybody has these obstacles. Everybody has these things that are holding you up, but it's just how you react to them. How you
100%.
react to them, you know, because most of the times you're gonna just learn a huge lesson when you overcome whatever it is that's stopping you. So
I'm a big believer too, and I'm at the point now where I'm learning how to say no. But I think in the beginning of this journey, like, you have to be in the yes business. Yes. Try it. Take opportunity.
There's a spot and a point for all of it. And one is because once you realize the value of your time, then you know that, hey, I can't say yes to everything because now it's like, hey, this time is valuable. Once you understand what you're doing and you understand that my time is valuable, you can't absolutely say yes to everything.
100%.
And that helps you out. But it's tough. Yeah. It's tough at the beginning because you got to get your foot in the door, right? You want to get in, you know?
Yeah. And it's interesting. I've had like the beginning of my creative and production team were a lot of 19 to 22-year-olds, and that's a different way of man. Because I'm here, Mike. I'm here. I'm next to Eric Thomas. I'm next to Gary Vee in my head. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Right, absolutely.
And working and trying to figure that out. And it's funny. It's interesting. And big shout out to Pablo. Big shout out to Ashlyn, two of my interns. Who they were great kids. Great. I don't mean to call y'all kids, but y'all kids. But
we know.
They did great. Both of them were great, and worked with them about 6 to 9 months. And then they both had stuff going on, but I've recently reconnected with them, and they've been like, hey, I went through this, I went through that. They've been upping their production levels and different things, and we're back working together, and it's great. In the beginning they were go, and then they had to figure out other stuff.
And then slow down a little bit. Kind of get in the groove. That's excellent. Like building a team, just like sports again. Building a team is huge in this business space.
Absolutely.
You got to have the right team. You can't do anything by yourself. I mean, shout out to Dre Sav, who I have a lot of people, Chris Perdue, Clarence Hornbeek. Shout out to y'all because Lead from the Front would not be that without you guys. It's not just me, Alan Justice. We do. Everybody does their own part, and it just makes it easier for me to convey our message. So and just like you spoke on them, everybody has their own thing that they're good at.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest thing is the term "know your role" is both positive and negative. Right. The way you kind of give the connotation of it, or your lane. But like I've had friends that are like, hey, I'm good at this, not good at that at this side of the business. And I'm like, great, I'm good at this, not good at that. But I think you have to have honest conversations with yourself and say like, okay, I'm gonna double down on what I'm really good at, and all right, now I'm gonna look at the things that I'm bad at. What can I skill up to? What can I skill up to and learn and get better at? And then what should I just leave alone?
Yeah, because you're not going to be able to be good at everything.
Right, right. Like I like shooting photo. I like holding the camera, doing video. I'm not going to be as skilled as an editor as some of my guys anytime soon.
Right, absolutely.
So I'm like, I kind of do some front and behind the camera, but this is where I need to focus and setting up the opportunities because I'm not going to edit a great video anytime soon.
I started out with the plan of Lead from the Front. I started out like, I'm just going to get these people. I'm going to put my phone up. I'm going to shoot the video. And then I said, nah, I'm not going to do that. That's not where I thrive at. So I'm going to have somebody else do that. Right. And that was probably a good decision for me. I don't want to put anything out there that doesn't look the right way.
Right.
I know. So how do you feel about that? Gary Vee talks about this a lot. Just putting stuff out.
Yeah. I think you have to get to that because the production's always going to scale up. Sure. You're always going to get better cameras, angles, and this ideas, but you got to start somewhere. And
that's the key. You got to start. So I think people misinterpret what he's saying a lot of times, like, hey, just put stuff out there. But you do, at some point, have to just put stuff out there, right? You just got to put it out there, and then you'll get the feedback, and you'll see it with yourself. You'll say, 100%. Hey, I need to do better with this.
100%.
But you do have to just put it out there.
Have to, and I think in some level, and figure out that progress. Because insecurity is real. Like I want, and I'm not a guy. I'm not a shy guy. One bit. But you to your point, brand image. You want things to look a certain way, especially if you're chasing other opportunities and whatnot. But I think you got to get it out, and you can't necessarily worry about the judgment from other people or other people. Because somebody's always going to be hate on you. As much as like we're building our personal brands alongside some people are going to be all in because of us, and some people are going to go the other way.
Some people will completely be like, I don't even understand what you're doing. I don't get what you're doing. I don't know why you're doing it. And you have to be able to take that and roll with it. You can't let it stop what you're doing. You know.
If you I think there's a bit of two things. I think there's a bit of paralysis by analysis a little bit with a lot of people as far as like they're looking at, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? And once again, it's like just start, and they're overthinking it. And then I also think another thing in the entrepreneur and the creative space is there's you can be a number one in your micro thing, but you need to be the number one in that team that area. And I think there's too often people try to be number ones and number twos in a business, and they need to be part of another team or business to close up those gaps. And that's a tough thing for people to swallow a lot of times. And you spend a lot of time spinning your wheels, not making as much progress, especially if you're an artist, creative, who's just terrible at business. Yeah. And I get one.
The best thing for you to do is get with some business people. Right, get with somebody that's there.
You have to, because it's gonna drain your creative energy and spirit. You're not gonna get the things that you want.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely will. There's absolute guarantee that if you're creative and you're stuck fiddling with stuff you shouldn't be fiddling with on the business side, you're gonna be in trouble. It will drain your creative spirit away from you.
100%.
Because me, for instance, I have a clothing brand, Three Kings Clothing.
Yep.
So I enjoy creating shirts. I enjoy creating sweatsuits, whatever we're doing. I enjoy doing those things, and sometimes you have to be in a certain space to be able to come up with ideas to create. And when things are not going well, it kind of messes that up. So you got to balance it. You just have to balance it.
Yeah, definitely. But it's the humility.
Yeah,
it's humility and being present and being aware of the situation and keeping that vision. You know what I mean? I think it's always Plan A, but you got to realize Plan A is gonna.
Yeah. It's always a twisted turn to get there. It's never a straight line.
100%. I think that's why a lot of people's businesses morph and change, over time. If you look at the history of even some big brands, like they started out as this and then they flipped to that. I'm mind blanking on an example, a particular example to give to people, and I'll try to come up with one. But there's a lot of companies, they start here and then they completely do something else, and that's what ends up making them successful.
Well, I mean, in today's where we are now, a lot of brands need to think about doing that because the old ways of doing things don't necessarily work. So if you were a company that was strictly Super Bowl ads and big time marketing budgets, you may not that you need to scale your budgets back, but you may need to look into other spaces. As far as we got kids on the internet right now, got 2 million followers. And maybe that's where you put your dollars at. Some stuff like that.
That's very real. I was talking to a gentleman on my way up today, and he's got a pretty large agency that's based in Michigan, a little north of Detroit, with offices in London, offices in LA, and maybe somewhere else. But Detroit's the main hub. And they service a lot of big brands, but those big brands regionally, if that makes sense. And I was talking to him, and he was saying that maybe about, I won't say his exact percentages, but he was like, X amount of percentage of our business retainer work in this model. He's like, now it's down to 65%. He was like, but we're all in on the digital space. He was like, we're all in on the stats and the data. And he was like, and now we're creating. He's like, we still do TV commercials.
For sure.
He's like, but we're doing native content for different platforms for those brands. I think a lot of people get romantic about the way they make money or the way they want to
attach to it.
The way they want their business to run. And it's when I saw a quote, it was like, there's the way it is, and then there's the way it really is, and you got to recognize that.
No, you absolutely have to recognize it. I mean, things have switched, and you just got to be on board with those changes. As a company and as a personal brand, we've talked about it before that personal branding is huge because if you don't get on board with it, whether you know it or not, you are a brand. Especially like we were talking about some of these young athletes. You know, you're a personal brand. You need to be on board with that, and you need to adjust to how things are, you know, and put that out there in the world in a good space, you know. So
100% on our personal branding deck that we have with FLG. There's a slide that I put in there, you know, and personal brand is the new word for reputation.
Yeah.
People are like, I don't care about my personal brand, but you care about your reputation, though.
That's exactly.
You know, and we all know, reputation is built through relationships. We know relationships are everything. We know people are the asset. You know, and it's really just scaling up based on the content and production. But like, you have to network. Your network's your net worth.
Yep, for sure.
It's all those same lines of thinking that have just kind of evolved and changed. And also now, I think it's really important to, you and I are documenters. You know, we're creators, but we're documenters. And I think it's good to put your authentic self out there.
People love to see that.
Yeah,
I mean, that is now,
and it's real.
That's the thing, because people want to know what goes into this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's no more, hey, you buy this because of this. You know, people want to know what goes into it. People want to see behind the window, behind the curtain, you know, as they say. And that helps a lot. That's part of what people thrive on.
Right.
You know, that's why people watch reality TV and all these other things, whether it's reality or not.
Right.
But we think we're getting a look behind the window.
Right.
You know?
Right. I think everyone has to have some element of personal branding. You know, not everyone can sit in front of the camera, but like, I don't like writing. I don't write great blog articles.
I don't like writing.
Yeah. For me, I have a writer who would like I'll flip this into an audio blog for us. You know what I mean? I'll send it to him.
Yep.
You can either use Rev, which is like gives you kind of some basic transcribe, and then I'll have him shape it into a blog to put my stuff out because I want to do this all day. I don't want to write.
I mean, this is the best. Like for us,
right.
Especially talking to somebody that's like-minded and has some similar things. But as far as like sitting down and like writing a blog, it's definitely not my space.
Yeah.
It's definitely not.
I think you have to figure out what that is and then create content. Even if you guys aren't able to, you're like, man, I don't have any native content. I don't have any native content ideas. But you see Mike and I's talk today. You see an article on LinkedIn. Right. Give your opinion. Give a paragraph over top of it. And just show kind of your thinking patterns because although right now, people who are trying to build businesses are, mostly in the personal branding space and trying to create, this is going to help you. If you're in the corporate structure, and you tend to, I would go public speak for free and do anything you
absolutely.
can.
Anytime you get a chance to do that.
It's just going to run you up the corporate ladder that much more. And then for also, entrepreneurs that are out, like if you need to pivot and go to get a job or in a corporate and they see these things that you've done and build over time, now it's on your resume. My resume reads really weird.
Well, once you've done all of these things, I think people don't even think to put some of the stuff in their resume that they've actually done. Well, this speaking engagement wasn't paid or whatever, but you actually did it. I mean, those are things that are real, that companies look at. How are you in front of people if this is some of the things that you're going to do? I can't put you out here and try to have you selling things for me and you're uncomfortable talking to people. That's just some of that stuff, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, man, it was definitely good talking to you. I want to make sure that I get you a lead from the front shirt.
I appreciate
before we wrap this up.
Thank you.
We always do this. This is part of our tradition on the show.
Thank you. I came prepared
yes,
as well.
Yes, you absolutely did.
Well.
Yep.
Reach over here. So, as I said earlier,
I love this.
Yeah, man. I just thought if you look at, everyone likes to hate on the state of Ohio, and for many, many reasons. But if you look at the history,
I love this.
People, politicians, athletes, astronauts, like there's a lot of people.
We got a lot of stuff going on.
We've been doing a lot, and I think for kids right down the street in all parts of Ohio, they need to see that you can do whatever you want.
Oh, for sure.
You can do whatever you want.
I think you help put that out there. I mean, if you guys are not following Brian, what's your social media?
You can get me at BROG the Predator, BROG the Predator. Same thing on Facebook and Twitter as well.
And we're at Lead FT Front on Instagram. And LFTF Show on Facebook.
Yep. Also, other things I'm working on, I got an Instagram, Brands That Get It. If you see this and you have a dope personal brand like Mike and you're working on a company or anything like that, would love to chat and connect with you. My agency, FLG Agency, that's at FLG.agency. So those are the projects along with Ohio Change the World that I'm pretty much most focused on.
Hey, I appreciate it. It's good talking to you.
Appreciate you.
We got to give a shout out to Sip Coffee.
Yeah.
And lead from the front.
Yep.